Today I wanted to talk about a biblical story about lineage, about having kids, and it's kind of a good timing for this event to happen today. So I feel like almost can't focus because I'm so happy for him. Do you feel like that? I almost can't focus. Um, it's kind of interesting. Speaking of focus, wasn't going to put this in, but Alexandra is just such a force to be reckoned with. She's almost 1 year old. She's 2 weeks away. Valentine's Day is her birthday. And when she wants something, she's just so incredibly determined. She just will not let anything stop her. And I used to be able to put a distraction. Like if she had an orange and she started biting, like I used to distract her like, oh, here's an orange, play with this orange. But now I turn around 2 seconds later, there's a huge chunk of the orange missing. So she can bite right through an orange peel. And I was like, oh my God, and I take the piece out of her mouth and I'm like, okay, how about an avocado, right? An avocado is like harder, right? So here's an avocado, distract her. I turn around, there's a huge chunk of an avocado missing from the outside. I'm like, she's strong. So I'm constantly learning and adapting. She's got such a will. And it's so amazing because we named her Alexandra because we wanted a strong name. Casey was like, I want her to be a strong woman, And I'm like, you got what you wished for. And I'm regretting it. No, I'm just joking. I'm not regretting it. Didn't say that. Oh my gosh. So Casey was like, yeah, I'm spending a lot of time with the baby right now. She's at home all the time with the baby. She's like, but when she's a teenager, she's all yours. It's your turn. I'm like, oh my God. You guys are going to need to pray for me, okay? Like triple hard at that point. Gotta up it, okay? So I was reading some really incredible, just kind of deeper appreciation of a story in the Bible that I wanted to kind of talk about, how God's will is so strong, but in unlikely places. Unlikely, because sometimes we sit and we go, why doesn't God fix that situation, Or why doesn't God help my spouse, pick up his socks or whatever it is, But this is an interesting story. You all know the story of Tamar, right? Now, it's an interesting story because a lot of Christianity doesn't have a clear understanding. I was reading a Bible analysis interpreter's Bible, and they were saying this story just has a peculiar, it's just kind of a twisted, we're not really sure what we're supposed to get out of this. It was like really admitting this is just a strange story. It's not moral. It's not good moral values, but perhaps it shows, the bond, or it can give you a glimpse into Jewish culture at the time, something like that. And I was like, wow, that's their analysis. So I started to look into it more, and I wanted to tie this in. This is an interesting story that I feel kind of relates to our lives today. But I want to go through it with you. Are you ready? Have you heard the story? You've heard the story. Okay, but it's interesting if you really look at it. So we're going to go through some history, all right? You have Judah, who's the fourth son of Jacob. And he is in the Davidic line. He is going to create the line of David, which is very important because Jesus can only come from the line of David, according to prophecy and all this stuff. So this is a very important guy, Judah. He had 3 sons, Er, E-R, Onan, and Shelah. Okay, he had these 3 sons. And Tamar was wed to Er. And do you remember what they said about him? I don't know, Bible buffs, I guess. They said Er was a wicked guy. I guess the quote is, he was wicked in the Lord's sight. So what did God do with him? It says God slew him. I just think that's so amazing. Okay, God got rid of him. Okay. So in that culture at that time, you know what happens when a brother dies? The wife gets passed along to the next brother. So she married the second brother, Onan. Okay? And now this guy marries Tamar, but it's kind of like he had reservations. It's like, this isn't really my choice. This is, not what I wanted. So it says in the Bible some, kind of racy stuff, but I'll round it off for you, okay? He says when they had relations, he didn't really want to have kids. Okay, you can kind of imagine. He didn't really have full, proper relations with Tamar. He wasn't trying to have kids with her. That was bottom line. And so in Genesis 38:9, when he went unto his brother's wife, he spilled it on the ground. Next sentence, 38:10, Genesis 38:10. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore, he slew him on the ground. So God just wiped him out. Interesting, right? Okay, I'm reading this and I'm like, wait a second, pause. We had Hitler, Mao Zedong, very terrible people all throughout history, and God doesn't slew them on the ground in an instant like that. But he did with them, instantly. And I thought that was very interesting, right? To me, it shows some kind of understanding that God actually took this very, 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 very seriously. This was not just guys doing bad things. Oh, if you don't love your wife properly, you're going to get killed by God. There was something major going on. And when you pull back, you see the fact is it's through Tamar, specifically Tamar and Judah's line, that Jesus is going to come 40 generations later. That's actually impossible. Like, can you imagine your 40th great-grandkid, like, that far ahead? So Tamar knew, I have to do this. I have to get this lineage going. She must have felt the call in her heart. And Judah was starting to think, this woman is cursed. Can you imagine? Wouldn't you? I mean, like 2 people in a row, bam, dead, bam, dead. So he actually had reservations, but he did the Jewish correct thing, and he married her to the third brother, the third son, Shelah. But guess what? He's a little young. So he said, Tamar, wait. Okay, you wait till he's a little older, okay? But actually, it says that he had reservations in his heart. Judah was thinking, this woman is a curse. I'm not happy with this. Shelah is a pretty young guy. This is not going to happen. So what did they do? They waited. Tamar waited. And they waited and they waited and they waited. And it became evident Judah was never going to pull the trigger. Judah was stalling. You know that? Sometimes people say, yes, I'll do it, or yes, I really want to do this with my life, but they stall. When you stall, it's really a subconscious or conscious way of basically saying, I actually don't want to do this. And Judah didn't want to go along with the plan. So Tamar, she cooked up a plan B. And desperate with the call of God in her heart, no, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. She had a plan B. Actually, I feel like it was a woman's instinct, Women have an instinct, right, men? Women have an instinct that you don't have. It's true. They feel things like on another level. You can walk into a room and say, oh, how was, the barbecue? And you can be like, oh, it was good. The meat was pretty tasty. And then you ask your wife, and she's like, oh, yeah, and this person's doing that, and this person, and I could sense this person was in a really good mood, and they're about to do this. And did you know in 5 months it's going to happen? All these layers of meaning and instinct for women. So she cooked up a plan. When she heard Judah was going to a town called Timnah, he was going to go take a little trip. I don't know, kind of like what for us would be like, oh, I'm going to go over to Davie or Doral. Oh, I'm going down. I'm going to get my tomatoes or whatever I'm doing down there. And she says, you know what? I'm going to catch him on the way there. So she gets made up in a veil. She veiled herself. And she stood on the road on the way there and basically pretended to be a prostitute. And I find this part kind of funny. Judah approaches her. He says, let me talk to her. And, he began the necessary negotiations with, a random prostitute. And, this is where Tamar is so genius. This part I never knew. She didn't want money. She said, no, I'm not going to take your money. But I'm a prostitute, but I don't want your money. And there's a very important reason why we're going to figure out in a minute. She says, I want a goat. So they agree in their negotiation process that Judah is going to pay her with a goat. And so they make the deal. They have relations. And then before he leaves town again, she says, she's tough, right? She's tough. She says, hey, how do I know you're going to pay me unless you leave some ID with me? And you know how when you rent a car or you do certain things, you kind of leave an ID? I remember when I was apartment shopping, and they say, no, you have to leave your ID at the front desk to go in. And then when you leave, you can get your ID back. It's kind of a way of keeping you accountable. Back then, did they have IDs? Government-issued driver's license? No. What did he do? You know what they did? They do items. Three items. Let me see if I wrote that down. It's a cord, a seal, and a staff. And these are all kind of vague, and I don't know how to relate to that, but the way I see it is, take my glasses, take my watch, and take my phone. Keep it, okay? And, next week when I'm on this road, I'll come back, I'll give you your goat, and you give me back my stuff. That's like ID. You get it, right? So he leaves with her a cord, a staff, and a seal. And a couple weeks later, or whatever it was, Judah sends a friend, right? He sends a friend. Go take this young goat over to that town, and there's a woman, okay? You'll see her. The friend goes and takes the goat, and what did he see? Nothing. She's gone. She's gone. A few months go by, 3 months go by, and totally disconnected in Judah's mind, right? He notices his daughter-in-law, who he hasn't really married yet. He sees his daughter-in-law is pregnant. And he goes into a violent rage. I was waiting to marry you to my son Shelah. What is going on here? And you know what the punishment was at that time? Burning alive to death. So immediately he's like, look, you broke the rules, burn alive to death. That's his response, Judah's response. Incredible, right? Actually, this foreshadows Mary, right? Mary with a birth that the unknown father, right? Very interesting. So he goes into a violent rage. We're putting her to death, guys. There's no other way. We're not having that in our family. And then Tamar, she must have been shaken at this point. She says, the man who I'm pregnant with is the owner of these items. See if you can recognize whose cord and seal and staff these are. Right? Isn't that amazing? See if you can recognize, I have these glasses and this wallet in here. Maybe you can help me figure out who the father is, right? So she shows him, and Judah, gets his you-know-what handed to him at that moment. Isn't that incredible? So he takes a moment to recover himself. They say that he pauses and oh my God. I mean, I can't believe he didn't faint. And you know what? First thing he said is, she's more righteous than me. That's what he said. She's more righteous than me because I didn't honor my word. I didn't give her to Shelah, and I'm owning that right now. I was never going to do it, and she knows it, and she was right. That's amazing, right? So I was thinking, this is not about, I think Christianity has a hard time kind of getting around this story, but to me it shows when God has a plan, he makes it happen. And when God needs a baby to happen, he's going to make this baby happen. You follow me? He made it happen. He killed 2 people like it was nothing. This is going to happen. He gave Tamar brilliant ideas of negotiating. And the whole plan is very clever. And I think the reason this story endures is because Tamar was willing to risk her life, burned alive, right? Risk her life to do what she felt God's calling was. That's kind of incredible. You know, I was thinking about this. God's plan for all of us is deep in our heart. Don't you believe so? Do you think you can go down and just talk to somebody on the street or at a restaurant and figure out what God's plan is for you? No, it's in your heart. And you know what's so amazing is that if you were outside of that situation, you could tell Tamar, look, you're immoral, this is crazy, and you're going to die. But in her heart, she knew what God's plan was. Amazing, right? So I kind of want to use this story as an encouragement to all of us. Only you know what God's calling and plan is for you. Only you. And when other people look into your situation, they're going to have ideas and advice, and that's great, but only you know. And I think that a lot of times when we kind of wonder, oh, what am I meant to do? And those are valid questions. I go through them too. I often think this story woke it up in me that it's not so much that you don't know or you can't feel God's plan for you. It's that, do you have the courage to do it? Do you have the courage? I think a lot of us are kind of scared to ask, kind of scared to pray, God, you tell me what I'm going to do and I'll do it. Is this a scary prayer? Because what if he asks you to do something crazy? Or something that you risk your life, or something you risk all the things you value. You don't all have to be like super out there. He's not going to all tell us all to move to Nigeria and be missionaries or anything. But he might tell you something that will threaten things that you value. So when God has a plan, nothing stops it. And I think that he's kind of using us all. We're all in this boat now, because think about lineage, right? And we're proclaiming here that we want to take up this torch of, we want to be part of God's lineage. So actually, the gravity with which God is working in your life is very intense. I hate to say it. Your life is very important. And I think about all those people I grew up with in our movement, and even myself, and we're worried about how are we going to pay bills? How are we going to have kids? Oh, it's too late. My career, I don't like my career. Look, God's going to work with you. I promise. I can see it in this story. When you're aligned, God's going to make it happen for you. He's going to get behind you. He definitely did for me. I could talk your ear off about how he's been helping me this last year. I think I've told a few of you. I think this story could make us more humble. And actually, there's one more side to this. When you're looking at someone else's life, you have to trust God that God can speak to them in their heart. Does that make sense? You're going to see people, Tamar literally, even when your moral code says one thing, God might have a different plan. Is that crazy? Nope, this is wrong. You're wrong. I know right from wrong, and you're acting wrong. And as religious people, you kind of want to know right from wrong and good from bad. But in this story, it shows that even moral law, even moral code, takes a little bit of a back seat to the bigger plan for God. Now, I'm not saying go ahead and be immoral. Please, I didn't say that. But I'm saying that when you're judging someone else's life, I'm fascinated at how intelligent and how analytical we all can become, and me too, when we're analyzing someone else's life. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you have deep insight. You follow me? Oh, it's because, when they were 5 years old, they moved to this country, and ever since it hasn't been the same, and that's why he does this, and that's why she does that, and you just have like deep insight and analytical abilities all of a sudden. I'm guilty too. I see it. I see the tendency. So even if you think you got such an intense grasp on the truth and what's right and what's wrong, you have to understand God can really work through them personally, and we need to give them the space. Does that make sense? It's a humble thing, because if I was Tamar's friend, I would have cast her away as, get out of my church, You're a bad person. You shouldn't even be here. All those sermons I gave and you're still doing this? Man, it makes me look bad. Get out of here, man. You're breaking the code. You're not living to the standard. And we want to have a standard. But I'm just cautioning, God's plan is huge and has mega gravity sometimes. So when God is putting two people together, when God is working something in your life or your spouse's life, you have to take it with some sort of reverence, some sort of pause. Pause to judge it. Pause to assess it. Pause to assess it. So I hope that this story can kind of strengthen your own gut feeling. If God can lead the lineage of Jesus through this incredible act of Tamar, I think he can work incredible miracles, and our main obstacle is the courage. The courage. So, does it make sense, doesn't it, guys? If you have a plan that you feel God is calling you to do, I really believe nothing can stop it if you have the courage.